Why do you keep making me restart? Just let me in.
Oh, I guess.
There's Stacy.
Are y'all ready to start?
Ready to come on. Come on, roll. We got time to roll. Something for change.
Testing.
Sounds like it's on.
Yeah. Great. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the March State Board of Education meeting. We appreciate you all being here today. We will take a moment of silence to begin. Thank you. We're going to start this morning. We have a student from Batesville High School, a senior, who had a really amazing moment this year. Kylie Montgomery, thank you so much for coming today. Thank you to her family and others from the Batesville School District to come here and share sort of about your sportsmanship and what you've done and how you've led this year. We appreciate you all being here.
So I think what we're gonna do is ask Kaylee, and I don't know if the athletic director or someone's gonna come up and introduce the story and tell us a little bit about the celebration and why we want to recognize our young scholar athlete for showing some tremendous heroic effect. Come on up. I told the coach I was gonna put him on the spot, and I think he begged me not to, but now he's here.
I didn't realize this was happening. No, Kaylee is a sweetheart, as you can tell. We are at the state cross country meet in Hot Springs. So this is the last meet that she'll ever run, okay? And like I said, she's just a great kid. And she's not gonna compete for winning the state meet, but she wants to get her personal record. That's what she always strives for, is getting her personal record. And she's in the last stretch, the last 100 yards or so, and she sees a girl drop, and I'll let her tell what was going through her mind, but she picks her up, and this girl is dead weight, and helps carry her across the line. And I'm watching this, and it was so crowded. I only see a little bit of the race, so I didn't see her actually pick her up. But I was like, Kaylee should be coming across now. She's on track. She's going to get her personal record. And then I see Kaylee carrying a girl or helping her up, and I was like, that's Kaylee. I mean, no, I'm not sitting there surprised at all that if somebody's going to pick her up, this girl would. And I'll let her tell her story. But real quickly, and I told one of the newspapers, Kaylee plays basketball for me too. Great kid. And we had our senior night the other night, and I gets a little emotional with girls. And I told them after the game that Kaylee makes me want to be a better Christian. That's the kind of character we're talking about when we talk about this little girl. So I'll give it to her.
Hey, come on out.
So as my coach was saying, it was the last stretch, and I was just running on. Usually, as I told everyone, the last stretch, I usually just try to kick it in, and I don't know what comes over me, but I'm able to push it to the very end, and I usually look up to the finish line. But as I was looking up, I saw the girl to the left of me, and it was just, I had no second thought, but I was just like, I have to help her. So I went straight to her, and as Coach Fowler said, she was dead weight. I was trying to get her arm around me, but she could barely stand up. But I was able to say, Lord, give her strength, and she was able to stand up and get her arm around me and start able to take a few steps. And it was difficult because I was also tired myself after running almost 3.1 miles. But as I was helping her, I kept praying out loud for the Lord to give her strength, and she was able to start running on her own, and I was honestly just kind of there as a little bit of support. So I've told everyone else I don't want any glory to come to me, because I honestly didn't even help her at all, because the Lord is the one that gave her strength to get up and cross that finish line.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We always start our meetings highlighting amazing people in the state, and you need to be highlighted for your leadership and your kindness in that moment. Thank you for sharing that too. I'm excited to see what's next for you and where you keep going and how you keep serving and helping others. You know, teaching's a great profession to do that in.
Great plug.
Well, and I thank you for coming, because I think we've probably, your humility is honorable. So I know we've put you, I feel like maybe in an uncomfortable spot, but boy, we really wanted to celebrate you. So thanks for giving us that opportunity.
And also, Kaylee, you know, thank you for letting everyone share your story and talk about it so much, because it really is an inspiration to everyone, to just a reminder of selflessness and how courageous it can be and what a difference it can make. And I'm moved by your story. I really, really appreciate you not only doing what you did, but telling it to other people too, even though I can tell you're quite humble and maybe it's uncomfortable. But it's a wonderful story.
Thank you.
Laura, I'm not sure where my microphone is. Well done. I mean, that is amazing. It's not often that anyone, much less young people, you know, give of themselves so selflessly. So we're so proud to know that you're in our community. I mean, we need more people like you. And then I'll also look at your parents and say, wow. I mean, I'm guessing these are your parents.
Yes.
Didn't know that for sure. But, you know, well done for you too. I mean, you must have a sense of pride, and not one of boastful, in a boastful way, but, you know, what an incredible young woman you've raised.
Kaylee, do you want to introduce your parents this morning?
Oh yes, this is my dad, Robert Montgomery, and my mom, Amy Montgomery.
In this,
And then that's our athletic director, Stu Smith, and Coach Fowler, Stan Fowler.
Awesome.
do you want to share what your plans are for the future?
I plan to go to our community college at UACCB for 2 years, get my associate's degree, and then I'm praying that I can transfer to A-State to get into their radiology program to become an MRI tech.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing and being with us today. What
You're
a
welcome.
special young lady you are. So.
Normally, I always have something to say, but right now, you know, I'm just taking well done. It's amazing. We're very proud for what you've done and what you're going to do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just commend you. So often we let our personal ambitions get in the way of the greater good, and you're just a great example of humility and service, and thank you.
I don't know that I can say anything that hasn't already been said, but just thank you for sharing your faith so freely and openly. I know that's hard, a bunch of adults that you don't know. But I commend you for just your work ethic and your heart. And I feel like if anybody from A-State is watching, that you should get a scholarship. So I'll just plug that for you.
Might make some calls.
I mean, you should make some calls.
I'll just second that. I mean, just awesome job. I do want to give your coach a shout out, though. So often, coaches are judged by wins and losses and the record. When we both know, or we all know, that our number one job is to teach young people how to do right in life and be ready for the game of life. Rarely do we get to see that take place in the middle of competition, and that's because of the culture you've created within your programs, and also having a great young one like this right here.
So I'll also add, Kaylee, thank you for sharing your story. We're proud of you. I almost feel like this story is going to be a Netflix special at one point, and one day we're going to celebrate your actions and the character that you demonstrated. I think oftentimes as adults, as coaches, as parents, as athletic directors, school board members, state board members, our hope is that we're building character in our students. And life is kind of funny because you don't know how you're going to respond to adverse situations when they come across you right in front of you, whether it's in competition or whether it's walking down the street. And when you are faced with a moment, it's a true testament that your character showed that you are being taught the right values. And as Bo was saying, it's a testament to the coaches, the quality programs at Batesville, because we always talk about student athletes, and I'm always super proud of our student athletes because they got to thrive in the classroom, and then above and beyond the work that they do in the classroom, they got to prepare themselves to be able to compete at a high level. So even making it to a state championship is something to be celebrated. While you may not have hit your personal record or went home with the first place trophy, I still think you're the champion in all of our books. So congratulations, we're really, really proud of you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for coming in today and for all of you as well. It's great. Yeah, that'd be great if we could get a picture with you. Thank you. We'll come down to you.
Oh, yeah, no, it's fine. Is it in the way? Do I need to move it? Okay, I can pull it up. Okay, no, thank you.
I'm good. How are you? Good to see you. Happy New Year. It's been a while.
That was great. It's great that we can have a platform to get good stories out there and to share amazing students, and things like that don't happen often. So amazing that we could celebrate that today, and hopefully because of that will happen more often in that case. With that, we'll move on to our action agenda. I don't believe there are any changes to the agenda, are they? Okay. Well, then we will start with our first agenda item. The Ashdown School District is requesting a waiver for their superintendent, and I see Miss Debbie Greathouse on Zoom here this morning.
Good morning, Hope Worsham, Assistant Commissioner for Public School Accountability. I'm bringing to you a waiver request from the Ashdown School District. It's a request to waive standard 4-B.1, which requires a licensed superintendent to be in place for the school district. The reason the district is requesting this waiver at the moment is because their superintendent had to vacate that position in January, I do believe, and they have an interim. That person is not licensed at the moment, however, and they do not intend to seek licensure because that is not their future path. And Ashdown is currently seeking a superintendent, so this is just to get them through the remainder of the school year, and that person is serving in that capacity, and she's here today to speak if you have any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Greathouse, would you like to speak?
I think we've kind of told our story on our application, but I'm happy to go through it with you if you would like for me to go. But I think the most important thing I want to tell you today is we have hired a full-time certified superintendent. He will be coming on board on July 1. He's not going to leave his current school. So now I have 2 certified superintendents that I'm working with daily. My previous superintendent, Mr. Nichols, and my newly hired superintendent, Mr. Robert Poole from Prescott. I have all of my co-op superintendents that are helping me. Mr. Benny Weston, director of our co-op. Lots of help have been offered and very graciously accepted.
Well, thank you for sharing through that. And I know, how long have you been at the district?
I've been in the district for 34 years. I've served in a variety of capacities. However, administration was never my desire. I liked working with kids. But I have been served as Dean of Students for parts of 2 different years when we had administrators who became sick or ill. I've been Federal Programs Coordinator now for like 14 years. I've worked extremely close with Mr. Nichols. I've handled all aspects of accreditation and accountability, budgeting. That's why Mr. Nichols chose me to fill in this role until the district could have someone come on board. It was the least amount of disruption to our campuses to allow our administrators to stay in their current positions rather than pull one off a campus. This is testing season coming up, and our campuses have very good plans in place for student achievement, and we wanted that to continue very smoothly, uninterrupted, and so I agreed to take this position.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your many years of service to the state
Thank
and to
you.
students. I'm going to open it up for board member questions. Board member of Ms. Worsham or Ms. Greathouse to my left. Mr. Wood.
Well, the application for the waiver says that you're the most knowledgeable employee in the district with regard to budgets, personnel, policies, practices, accreditation, accountability. You're extremely competent, organized, and pay close attention to details. You got my vote. I hope that the next 3.5 months in Ashdown are the most successful 3.5 months in the history of the school district for you. And I hope you'll take all the credit for whatever gains your district makes in achievement.
Well, I appreciate that, but it's a very big team effort.
Ms. Rollins, do you have a question?
I also wanted to comment and just say the district is very fortunate to have you step forward and take this role for several months. And it's, like you said, during testing, and it's a very busy time of year. And I really appreciate you stepping forward. I did notice that your school board was unanimous in this decision, so I always feel great about that as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Board members to my right, questions or comments? Okay. With that, anything else, Ms. Worsham?
No.
Okay. We will open the floor up for a vote.
Move to grant the waiver.
There's a motion by Mr. Wood to grant the waiver. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Ms. Rollins. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
The second waiver request this morning comes from the Heber Springs School District. and is a request to waive standard 4-F.1 and Arkansas Code 625-104, both of which require a certified library media specialist. In this particular request, the Heber Springs School District has been under this waiver for the past 3 years. They have advertised for the position and have received no applicants. And so they felt like since they have not received any applicants to this point in their efforts to recruit, that they would want to come request the waiver to continue offering library media services in the capacity that they have been doing in the past 3 years. And I do believe we have a representative from the district online if you have any questions.
Thank you. Heber Springs School District, do we have anyone present?
Yes, I'm Rita Lee, Assistant Superintendent, and our high school principal, Shannon Martin, is here as well.
Thank you. If you all could share a little bit more about why you're requesting this morning.
You want to talk?
So we currently have a paraprofessional that has been overseeing our library and maintaining its use by students and teachers. We have had the job posted since before Christmas, and we've had no certified applicants for the position.
I think we've had some internal interest in it, but library media is kind of like GT. We also have an opening for that we had a hard time filling, but for library media, there's coursework and a praxis exam required, and all the people that internally were interested in it already had a master's, so getting the additional coursework wasn't going to move them up on the pay scale, and so they, opted out after that. We kind of have a hard time recruiting teachers around here. It's a beautiful place to live, and we have great students and a great school, but it's kind of an expensive area to live. The cost of housing is kind of high, and so we kind of run into that problem frequently here.
We'll open the floor up for board member questions. To my left, questions. Dr. Arnold?
Yes, could you comment on the duration of the waiver request? Is 5 years too not optimistic enough for finding candidates?
We certainly will keep it posted. My plan is just to keep that up, just in case we do have someone, the paraprofessional that we have in there right now, if we by chance got the waiver and then we had someone apply that was certified, we would move them into that position and just move the parapro into another place in the district. It doesn't have to be for 5 years. If we need to do 3 again, that's absolutely fine too. But I just put 5 as our other waivers were for 5 years, so I just did the same thing. But we could certainly go less if we need to, and we will continue to look. I tried to recruit our former librarian that retired several years ago, and she didn't want to come back to work full time. She would do part time, but she didn't want to do a full time job.
Well, I certainly understand the precedent of the 5 years, so thank you for that. I just hope it doesn't reduce motivation.
Ms. Keener?
Yeah, so you said there was a paraprofessional in the role currently. Can you talk about her progress towards certification?
She's not working towards certification at all. She has no desire to go back to school or anything like that. She's been a long time. I think she's probably been at the district 25 years at least. But she fits into this role very nicely. It would be good if she would do that, but she just has no interest in doing that.
And then you mentioned that the other internal candidates that were certified with a master's did not seek the position because it would require an additional master's in the current pay scale. They wouldn't receive additional pay. Who sets the pay scale for your district?
Excuse me?
Who sets the pay scale? Like, who set that limitation that prevents you from hiring that certified teacher?
Well, the board of our school board approved it, but we do have a bump up for masters, but all the people that were interested already had a master's, so they're already topped out on that line item. And they thought it would just be a testing out thing, that you would take the praxis for library media, and then that would be all. But there's coursework, I think 30 hours of coursework required for it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how long has the district been without a certified individual in the position?
3 years, I believe, is what,
Okay.
we've been
What,
the waiver in.
and tell me what's going on in neighboring districts with regard to this position?
To my knowledge, the ones that are around us are in the same situation that we were when ours retired. Like they have someone that's been a long time employee, just hasn't retired yet. So I don't think they've had to try to find anybody new. And we're kind of, in our surrounding area, we're the only one that has a separate middle school. So we have to have 3 librarians. And that just makes it hard for, us to get someone. We lucked out last year, middle school, our person retired, and we had an elementary teacher that did not have a master's already, and so she wanted to do an ALP, and that, kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone for her. It gave her master's pay, plus the bump to the library that she wanted, so.
Well, I guess I'm concerned because I agree with you that Heber Springs is a wonderful place certainly to visit. I've never lived there, but to visit. I think it's beautiful, and I can't imagine that it's hard to attract people to want to live in that beautiful part of the state. My encouragement is to double your efforts on this and to talk to your board about increasing the pay for that position to make it more competitive and more attractive for candidates. I personally, given that it's been 3 years now, and I think that I would be in a position to oppose this long of a waiver. I think I would go to a 1 year at a time plan at this point, and hope that would be an encouragement for the district to. I don't say this in a position that y'all haven't made effort. I don't know, but I just to do everything you can, because I really can't believe that there's an excuse for people to not want to go to Heber Springs. It's a wonderful town. So anyway, that'll be my position. I'll support a 1 year waiver.
Ms. Hunter, and then I'll go back to Ms. King.
Good morning. I'd like to go back to one of the opening comments. Did I hear correctly that this position has been posted since Christmas?
Prior to.
Prior to Christmas. So has it been posted for 3 years, or did it post just shortly before this application for waiver?
We posted it before Christmas because we knew the waiver expired in June. And so I think it was around the 1st of November that we posted it for this time. But no, it has not been posted the whole time for 3 years.
Yeah, so I'll just echo Mr. Wood's comments regarding the length of the waiver request, particularly in light of the fact that you've been on waiver for 3 years, and as that waiver was expiring, then you attempted to post, as opposed to actively working during the entire waiver period. But so I would agree I think I would go along with a 1 year waiver over a 5 year waiver for sure.
Okay.
See, I understand what the paraprofessional would do as far as their routines, but what specifically would be shifted to the ELA teachers? What are those responsibilities?
They are taking on the research piece of it that a traditional library media specialist would do. They are all handling that in their classroom. And honestly, when we had a librarian, they were still doing that because we were one-to-one school with Chromebooks, so it was just easier for them to handle research in their classroom without going to the library, back and forth to do that. So they're taking on that. She handles, the paraprofessional that we have in there now handles the technology checkout, or if she does all of our Chromebook maintenance and keeping up with that, tracking that with students. And she takes care of the library check-in and Yes. check-out procedures.
Okay, and they've been doing that now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, they've been doing that for a while.
Board members, more questions? Ms. Keener?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on something. So I'm concerned about the paraprofessional. I feel like she's made a choice. If she's choosing not to pursue the additional certifications, she's essentially pulling herself out of the running by denying the opportunity to meet the legal requirements, regardless of their validity and how strict they are. She's choosing paraprofessional pay. So I'm concerned that we're continuing to put someone in that position that has such high requirements because of the importance of that position, and they're choosing not to have that growth mindset, and that we're putting additional burdens on, say, classroom teachers or ELA teachers when that is supposed to fall based on requirements and laws and that kind of stuff. So that is of concern to me. I just need to express that, and I'll turn it over.
Yeah, Dr. Moore, I'd like to add to what I've said earlier. I used the motivation word, and I just wanted to comment that if I were the superintendent and received a 5-year waiver, filling that position would be the last thing on my mind. And so I would also reiterate the recommendation of no more than a year's waiver.
I noticed on your application, we have strongly suggested districts when they're coming for a waiver that they've already held to give us data as to the effectiveness of that waiver. I noticed that not only is there a lack of data or any detailed information, you also clicked on the box, the purpose of the waiver is to promote innovation. Is that true? And can you speak to why you have sort of no information as to the success of this position? I know, again, it's different than if we were asking for a math teacher or science teacher waiver, but this is a position where students in 9th through 12th grade, deserve the opportunity to go to the library and to get those skills.
I think as far as data, I really don't know what kind of data we could provide other than our ELA, scores have been good, and our kids we're meeting all the standards. We're still teaching all the standards, covering all the research piece. And the library, of course, is still open and available for checkout or study time or anything else like it always was. I think we have seen such a decline over the last several years in students wanting to go get a physical book in their hand. If they consider it reading, I'm still old school, I like to have a real book, but the majority of our kids that read for enjoyment or outside of the classroom, they do it on their phone, or they have an audio book that they listen to at night on their computer or something. And so we're not seeing the volume of kids. We still have that in elementary. That's still going strong, and middle school is better. But in high school, we just don't have the volume of kids that we used to have coming in and out, checking out the books. But we still are handling all the standards and covering all those, just like we did before when we had a librarian.
I appreciate that, but I also hear even more so the need for innovation, and that we need to be doing bigger and better things to get students in libraries, in front of books, and doing that. And so, we take each case in consideration individually, but we also have to think about what if we had 260 districts come to us and say, we don't think the high school librarian position is necessary anymore. Then that's a different case. And I'm not hearing you say it's not necessary, but I'm hearing you say that it's minimalized because your classroom teachers can do it. And that's a greater conversation. I'll stop there. Board members, other questions or comments? Actually, I do have a question of Ms. Worsham, and this might be premature, but I know there is legislation proposed around licensure, but this is not a licensure waiver, correct? This is
requesting to not employ a position that is required. That requires a certified staff member, yes.
So it's not. Do we have any other waivers like this for some other positions?
So the requirement for school districts to have a library media specialist is a legislative requirement, and it's in our standards. And so for standards of accreditation, this district is asking to be waived not to be required to have a library media specialist. That's what they're waiving. You are correct. There is a law right now about licensure that people will not be able to come and waive licensure requirements. So
that's
if they
not
were,
this.
that's not what they're
Okay.
asking for here.
This is the position. Do we know how many other districts currently do not, have waived the library media position at the high school level?
Do you know it off the top of
I don't know the numbers. I could find it out for you.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Dr. Arnold.
I'll be bold. It's only March, so if this motion doesn't get a second, I do understand, but I would move that we not grant a waiver to this request.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Arnold to not grant the waiver, a second by Ms. Keener. Questions or comments, board members? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Heber Springs, for being here today. I'm sure the agency will be in touch with you moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the North Little Rock School District for a request for the alternative school calendar.
Yeah, so this is the same kind of waiver request that we saw many school districts doing last year. It's a waiver of when they notify the department the type of calendar. So North Little Rock School District started the year with a traditional 178. They're asking to move to an alternate calendar. To be able to do that, they have to get the waiver on when they notify us. Dr. Jacob Smith from North Little Rock is here today.
Thank you, Dr. Smith, for coming. If you'd like to give some remarks on your request.
Absolutely. Members of the board, Secretary Oliva, thank you guys for having me today. Much like last year, we've had a winter surge in regards to inclement weather, and the North Little Rock School District has been closed for 6 days this year. We're under traditional model, and we're actually moving to a minute calendar next year, but that did not make it through our PPCs and community process in order to be voted on for this year. And so we're coming before you again to ask that we, going forward, because we use a 100-minute early release model under our traditional calendar, we'd like to use those 100 minutes for the remainder of the year as student instructional time, as opposed to students being released and us performing PD and things of that nature. And so it's not a massive adjustment in regards to our overall structure of our day and our effect on our students and community, but it would, with this alternative calendar, it would allow us to use that time for instructional time to make up for the time that was missed.
Thank you. Board members, questions to my left?
So what are
Ms.
your
Rollins?
start and ending times for the day?
Oh goodness, at each level, in fact, we just placed a memo out in regards to that. Bear with me, I apologize. Yes, ma'am. The start time would not change, and so our pre-K begins at 7:30 and ends at 2:30. Elementary school would be 7:40 to 2:55. Middle school would be 8:15 to 3:35, and high school would be 8:40 to 4:10.
So tell me again how many minutes you're adding to a day?
It would just be 10 additional minutes, but we already go 20 minutes beyond what is required each day in regards to instructional time. So under a normal, I guess, requirement, it would be 360 minutes, 6 hours per day. We actually go 380 minutes. And so that is how we bank 100 minutes weekly whenever we go 5 full days. And that is how we do an early release with that banked time. But you cannot carry it from week to week under a traditional calendar. You can only apply banked time for the particular week, which is why we use that model on a full 5-day week, because that's how we garner those 20 minutes.
How are the students responding to this?
The kids are very resilient and versatile, and so I think there's a push, if we can use that time, both on behalf of our staff and our students, to be able to get out as close to on time as possible. That would be the push from the community and the feedback we've received from the board.
So you feel like they're fully engaged the whole time?
Yes, ma'am.
Other board members, questions to my left? To my right, questions?
end date converting to this model?
May 30th.
What was your question? I'm sorry.
What would be their end date by converting to this model?
Do you have any, outside of spring break, do you have any other days off before May?
I don't believe so. We try to keep April pretty open because of the testing window in regards to time off. That's kind of our high priority. And so spring break ended up the last week of March this year, and I think after that we're just kind of in testing mode until we get to the end of the race.
Okay. As far as adding, so you will add 10 minutes to every day for the rest of the remainder of the school year, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
How will that work out at the high school level? Where will those minutes fall for students?
Yes, ma'am. So we're on a block schedule is the way we are, and so it's 4 periods per day. And so we would make an adjustment, basically extend 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes, 2.5 minutes each period.
Okay. Next year, you said y'all are looking to go to the calendar, to the hours calendar. How many days would you plan to have next year?
Next year it would be, so that was a unique process as well. Like I said, going through the process of the community and everything. 176, we would only have 2 additional professional development days off of our traditional calendar, but our pre-K, because of the standards associated with that, needs to be open the full 178.
Okay. I've been a vocal critic, I think, of going fewer days of school. I've also noticed when we're moving to the hours, we have to get really particular, and I know the agency does, about what those 6 hours are, and we need to be guaranteeing that the students are actually fully receiving 6 instructional hours at school. Can you guarantee that at each level?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you dismiss buses early, or are those, the end of the day is truly the first time that kids are leaving your campus?
The end of the day, as far as I'm aware, ma'am.
Okay, so you're not cutting short. I've seen that in practice too, where the end of the day is the end of the day for some students, but buses leave earlier. And I know that's a real challenge, but if we are starting to count hours, we need to fully count hours of kids in seats learning, and we don't want to shortchange.
Yes, ma'am. We run a 3-tiered transportation system, and so elementary, middle, high, there's a 30-minute gap in between basically when each one ends, because we're adding 10 minutes at each level. It's not affecting that transportation process.
Okay. Board members, other questions?
So you didn't have any built-in days for snow or bad weather
Well,
in your calendar this year?
yes, ma'am, we did. At the end, as required by law, you're required to build in 5 inclement weather days, and so we do have that built in. But the ask is just to be able to use the time we already have applicable, so we don't have to extend the year.
And when was your end date? I'm sorry.
May 30th.
When were your days, when were your built-in days?
It's the last 5 days, so May 30th, I believe, is on a Friday, so it would be June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th.
And it would, to meet this 178 days, it'd be 2 additional days? Is that what you, how many additional days would you need, I suppose?
So if we are allowed, granted the waiver, and we use the early release time as instructional time, that would make up that would make up 1,620 minutes, which is 4.5 days, and then extending the school day for 10 minutes for the rest of the year would make up the other day and a half. So the majority of the time our students are already used to, because 4 days a week they are going 380 minutes on a full 5-week day, and so us keeping that Wednesday as a 380-minute day is really more of a normal day than an early release. The real difference would be that extra 10 minutes.
Wait, I guess I'm confused. So what happens on Wednesdays? There's a little bit early release?
Yes, ma'am. So we, under our traditional calendar, because we go 380 instructional minutes, we bank 20 minutes a day beyond what is required by law, the 366 hours. And so every Wednesday we go a full week. We have a 100-minute early release day on Wednesday so that we can provide professional development, have a data day, things of that nature. And so that is how our calendar is built right now under the traditional model.
So every Wednesday, your kids are getting out an hour and 40 minutes early.
If it's a full 5-day week, yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you have no interest in filling it, like not adding 10 minutes to each day, but filling out that Wednesday?
Yes, ma'am. The ask would be is that under the alternative calendar, the board and the PPCs have already approved to use that 100 minutes as instructional
Okay, so you
time.
will go full day on Wednesday
Yes,
now
ma'am.
for the rest of the school year?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Did you get a lot of pushback? Was this the first year to do that early release Wednesdays?
No, ma'am. We've been, I believe this is our second or third year, and the board was, and state board was gracious enough last year for us to do this with what happened with inclement weather, and it was actually very positive feedback in regards to the staff.
But you don't get negative feedback from parents around having to, find childcare every Wednesday earlier?
No, ma'am. In fact, we get more negative comments from our community students and staff as well in regards to having to extend the year, vacations, trips, things of that nature, summer ball. I mean, however you want to define it, there's lots of things that happen come June.
I understand that, but also want to maximize our students' learning time. And I understand that staff development is important, but it's also hard to swallow losing, doing schedules like that as a parent.
I appreciate what you're saying, but one thing we have to also remember is one thing that does not occur in June is learning.
100%.
It just doesn't matter. You can have that's right. You can have the schools open, nothing happens. They're cleaning classrooms and taking down bulletin boards.
You can say that in Arkansas, but if you go to the Northeast, they're in school through the end of June, so we need to change that mindset.
Well, no, they have a different culture.
We have a lot of schools going to full calendars.
Because school is another month. Not when you're talking about the last.
I agree with you, but I think that's been our ethos in the South for so long that if we have districts going to different calendars, we got to start changing that and pushing on districts to change that.
I would bet anything that the last 3 days in New York are as productive as the last 3 days in Arkansas.
Absolutely, it's just a calendar thing.
It just doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, I think what does matter is the assessment window, and our assessment window doesn't change for snow days.
I've been pounding the desk ever since I've been up here that we should start earlier in August and end school earlier because I don't even think learning occurs in May. But that's neither here nor there.
We are starting earlier next year under the alternative calendar.
Use their microphone. I just have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand your current, and this is really just, if I'm supposed to know this, I apologize. But in your earlier comments, you said that you're banking those extra minutes on those longer days, but that they can't carry from week to week. So how then do you early release on Wednesday?
Yes, ma'am. So under a traditional calendar, you can bank time within the given week and apply it to that given week. But you can't, so I can't take 100 minutes and apply it to the next week and add it to the 100 minutes of that week and do a 200-minute early release or like a half day. Whatever the rules of the game are in regards to a traditional calendar and the way that law has been passed, you are not allowed to carry them beyond the week you are talking about.
So, just for my own, so it's not that you have to have actually done the extra minutes. It's just that you have to plan, because I think about you've early released on Wednesday. Now it's something happens on Thursday, Friday. So you really haven't banked all those hours, so to speak. Like to me, banking is like a pre-thing rather than a planned thing. Anyway, thank you. I understand what you're saying, but I don't really know that I agree with it.
But to your point though, but then those would fall under the snow day, inclement weather days. I understand exactly where you're coming from.
I don't know if it's the inclement.
My position is we're squabbling over like 3 days at
Agreed.
this point, and he's the one in the district running it, so I will defer to what you think is best.
I think
we're getting really, really specific.
We are. I think I use my platform that we want to continue to send the strong message that learning matters and seat time matters for students in classes learning. And I know that's going to be a conversation up at the Capitol at some point, or should be. And so that is my personal. I used my position in this time to do that.
Because I completely agree that adding 2.5 minutes to a high school class is practically worthless. I don't believe in that. But I also don't believe that making them go in June is of any value. Families don't want to. Our culture is that we want to move on to our summer break at Memorial Day. And I support that. As a parent, as a former local school board member, I'm a strong advocate for that. But the problem is that the people on the hill up there apparently don't agree with that idea, or the Parks and Tourism lobby is simply too strong and they get in the way of starting school earlier every year. But I don't understand that, because if you transition vacation time to May and not early August, May is when people want to be outside and doing things. August is not. But
and Memorial Day is
down
the
here.
26th this year, so I know a lot of districts are getting out before then. So y'all are going farther than.
So then
some
I
districts.
incorrectly spoke then. If that is the case, then we would be out for that day. And so there
Okay.
is
That Monday.
one additional
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I will motion to grant a waiver and give you the 168. You can put that down.
There is a motion by Ms. Wood, a second. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you all.
Yes, Secretary.
If it's okay, I think I'm gonna make a comment about calendars, if I may. We have lost our way in this state by thinking that going to school is not important. And even though we're dealing with some nuances with inclement weather, and I'm very empathetic to that, having 178 days of school is our minimum, not the maximum. It's a minimum expectation. In every year, we have districts chipping away at that minimum by banking minutes. And I get, Mr. Woods, what you're saying is adding a week for inclement weather. Then why are we adopting a calendar that says if we have inclement weather, we're going to extend the school year? It should be built into your school year calendar. Because we have professional days, we have teacher work days, we may have to surrender some of those days. Do we need a fall break and a spring break? Do we need Thanksgiving off? Do we need all these days? 178 day of in-person instruction is not a ridiculous requirement. And our legislature graciously funds 178 days of in-person instruction. So we have all these schools that are saying we're gonna meet that 1,068-hour requirement, but we're only gonna build a calendar of 175 days. Or 170, I think we just heard 176-day calendar next year. And then we have some that are going 170. We have schools in this state that have in-person instruction 143 days. How is this allowed? If learning matters and being in front of high-quality teachers matters, then we need to do something working with our friends in the legislature to say that this is a priority, and that when we invest in our schools to make sure that our students have access to a full day of learning, that it is at a minimum of 178 days. How a school district wants to adopt the calendar to meet that 178-day requirement, that's where I get them that local control. You want to start August 1st? You want to start in September? You want to go 4 days a week, 5 days a week? Some days go 3, some go 7, some do half days. You can figure that out. But 178 days of in-person instruction is not a lot to ask for. And by the way, that's well below the national average. So we already as a state go below the national average, and then we just kept letting people chip away and chip away and chip away. We keep seeing these things to try to bring back AMI days. I'm sorry, sending kid home a packet that says that this is equal to a full day of learning is ridiculous. And when I first got here and started questioning AMI days, I would get requests from districts saying, we're requesting to go to an AMI day. The basketball team made a state championship. We want to send a pep rally bus to go root for them. Excuse me? That's what we mean for a full day of learning? So I know we're going to deal with inclement weather. We need to be empathetic to our districts, but I think as an agency, we should take a strong stand that saying we're going to schedule a calendar that has 178 days of in-person instruction should not be that hard. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oliva. I know this is anticlimactic after that, but I think the national average is closer to 180.
I believe
Dr.
you're right.
Moore's point, particularly in the Northeast, and we are competing, and we need to be competitive. So I like that mindset. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you. With that, we will move forward to agenda item number 4, request to approve the Arkansas Better Chance grants. Ms. Williams, thank you for coming today.
Thank you, board members. Before I start, I just want to acknowledge board member Lee Keener for working alongside us and really pushing us. I think in the past, when ABC recommendations have been brought to the board, and I have not been involved in the past several years until recently, but I do think even when I was administering over at DHS, they were just brought as a list. And I want you all, I'm going to walk you through the process of how we came to you today with these recommendations. So I want you to see the data that was used in that process. So I do have the clicker, thank you. On the slides, let me get it started. It's always, doesn't like me for some reason. Okay. All right, so many of you know we funded local leads over the past year and a half as a result of the LEARNS Act, and the local leads are in communities working alongside early childhood as well as other stakeholders. One of the things that they did early on in the first cohort and second and now third is to do a child count. But more recently in December, they did a coordinated funding request for seats across birth to 5. So we have seats that are funded through the federal child care block grant. We have some infant toddler contracted seats that are very new. We have pre-K seats. We have Arkansas Better Chance that we're going to talk about in a few minutes. That also includes center-based and home visiting, as well as an early Head Start grant. So across all those programs, the coordinated funding request came in with requests in all of these areas. This is just a cycle map so that you can see it. I'm not going to read everything, guys. I'll try to move quickly because I know you have other items. I think the big message here is there were almost 5,000 additional seats requested across the state from birth to 5, which is more than we have the ability to serve in the Office of Early Childhood, way more. We will continue to refine and work on this coordinated funding request process as it's very new. And I think programs maybe didn't understand it as our local leads were asking for them to submit. Some of them are thinking there is no new funding, why would I submit? So we will continue to work on that, but I wanted you to just see the first attempt at this was a pretty big request. In addition to the coordinated funding request, there were lots of board members who asked questions last year, and I took note of that around home visiting and all the questions that were raised. You also asked us to bring this to you earlier, and that's why we're here earlier in the year to ask. But my team has looked at enrollment data for the past 3 years in Arkansas Better Chance. I was quite surprised, as I have not been administering, that there were enrollment issues in about 16 programs. And when I say enrollment issues, I'm talking about significant enrollment issues. We look at least programs to be at 85% enrollment, because if you have 100 children, you would have a classroom of 20, you would probably have to hire 5 teachers at a minimum for those 5 classrooms. So we acknowledge that there may be a little bit of movement, but we're looking for at least 85. And so my team put together data and looked at the last 3 years. We, as a result of that data and the coordinated funding request, we are recommending shifts in 277 slots. We are taking them from 16 agencies that had 3 years worth, not just 1 year in the 3, but 3 years worth of under enrollment in ABC, because it is not fair to children sitting out there who need to be served to have to wait. We are also proposing that those be reallocated to 14 existing agencies who did have good enrollment or who have made a suggested change, and then 3 brand new agencies. So I'm going to show you slides about the specifics. I wanted you to see the request across the programs. So those 5,000 seats, about 1,200 of them were for ABC seats. in classrooms, and about 66 were for home visiting. There were infant toddler seats, so there are people asking to serve younger children, as well as early Head Start and our CCDF program. And you can kind of see the breakdown of agencies requested. Probably up until about a month ago, I think I told Secretary Oliva and Stacy last year that if there were seats that were turned in, if you will, or relinquished to us, that I would probably come to the board and suggest that we put that back into the budget, because there's been no increase in ABC. However, the data here is so compelling. These programs know the reimbursement for these programs, and they're still asking for over 1,200 seats. And we have a wait list in our Child Care Federal Block Grant that we put into place in February. So we are at the top. We're serving all the families that we can. And so as I go through these slides and show you across these areas, and this is just a breakdown by providers and the seats and the totals for each of those program areas, and then just a breakdown by county. We looked at counties that are serving less than 40% of the children to make these recommendations to you. So we did 0 to 40%, we did 41 to 50, 51 to 70, and 71 to 100. There are 2 counties in the state that are at 71 to 100, which is real exciting, but there are only 2. There are a lot of counties, 26, that fell below the 40%. So we looked across these requests to make these recommendations all across the state in those 26 counties. This is the seat request, and the colors represent the local lead cohorts. So cohort 1 is that first local lead cohort, and then red is the second one, and then 3 is the blue. So that's a newer, the cohort 3 is the newest local lead group. We also, as you're looking at this data, later, if you look at the county level data, there are programs like, a co-op that may be housed in one county. If they have several hundred home visiting slots, those are in that county. So you'll see sometimes the request might be lower or higher than what's recommended. Just know that it's probably a result, and we put a little note there so that you can see it, a result of that home visiting going into one area, not spread across the multiple counties that it serves. But this is in your packet, and you guys can look at that at your leisure, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to try to answer questions about that. There were 16 agencies, as I mentioned, that we reduced due to low enrollment. Now, we notified these programs back in the fall, November, December. They received a letter from our staff, and we made that funding adjustment to them then. If they served some additional children, we allowed them to do that, but we wanted them to know that we are looking closely at this and that our rules allow us to do that. I'm not sure what the practice has been in the last few years since I haven't been administering, but when I was administering, this is sort of the practice that we did. We were moving those slots. And so we let them know, so I want you to know they've been notified. There's one agency that relinquished. It's a school district that's serving paying children too, and they're combining, which is wonderful. They're doing a blended program with 10 ABC slots and 10 paying slots. Maybe for their staff, I didn't get the details, but they relinquished those voluntarily. And then one agency requested to move their slots or to allow the co-op to administer those slots. So I just want you to be aware those were a part of this. And so this is where we are requesting the reallocation. And then in your packet, you have the full sheet. All of the programs that were at full enrollment, we're requesting those slots to go back to those programs. This is just for those 277 that we pulled back in or that were relinquished and where we're making those recommendations. All of these are in counties that are 0 to 40% served. They're the lowest tier of where children are being served across the state. I can tell you they represent across the state. There are 5 community-based providers, including 2 brand new family child care homes. And the homes we've already looked at their backgrounds, they have degrees, which is really exciting, but they're only asking for like 2 children or 3 children, which means they're blending funding. They're going to be serving paying children and maybe some through our CCDF federal child care, which is really probably a better model in terms of funding in early childhood right now. So that is the list. I'm happy to take any questions. And again, just really want to thank Lee for all her really support and just push to make us do better, be better, and to really dig into this data. And I know she may have comments about some of the work. These are the 3 new programs that are not existing. Alma Primary, the superintendent there has been a long pre-K supporter and has already started a pre-K on other funding, but they asked for slots and they're in the 40% and below. Bright Beginnings is one of the family child care homes. I believe that one's in Carroll County. And then Little Donna's Family Home it's on there, Howard County. So we're really excited about these 3 new entities, especially these community-based providers. So this is just a breakdown with the funding allocation and the numbers of home visiting. And so, Dr. Moore, I just want you to know that while it's not my goal to eliminate home visiting, we have reduced home visiting, in fact, because many of those slots that were not being filled were in home visiting. So that concludes my comments, so I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
Thank you. Board members, questions to my right? Mr. Bragg?
What's the source of, are there multiple sources of funding?
That's a great question. So there's 114 million, Mr. Bragg, and 7.5 is a TANF transfer to the agency, but the rest of that is state general revenue. It's state general revenue. It comes from the state. It's allocated through the legislature, and it's part of the original ABC program and then expansion that happened in the early 2000s.
So do we know at this point if any of the Medicaid cuts that they're talking about will affect our children in Arkansas with this program?
Mr. Rollins, I do not know specifically. We are working closely with our colleagues in the early intervention side of the house. I've not been made aware of any changes to that, but we can certainly ask questions and see if we can get any data on impact. I know what you're talking about, but I have not been made aware of any specific cuts that would impact the children in early intervention. And that would be that population that, are being served through Medicaid.
Yeah, it's probably too early.
Board members?
Well, I attended the committee meeting that Lee ran, and she can run a meeting. It was really productive and informative to me, so a shout out to Tanya and to Lee for their professionalism and their work on this. It's highly detailed, and you care about each center and each child, so I just wanted to say that. I wasn't fully clear on one of your committee members' concern. Maybe you could comment on that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to basically dismiss everything you just said because I have a lot to learn as the committee chair. So I appreciate the compliment, but you're flat out wrong. So what? I've been thinking about this a lot. So bottom line, as a state board member, I recommend that we approve this action item. The subcommittee does not. And so I want to follow up on that and kind of give some background knowledge. Long story short, I'm no Dr. Sarah Moore. I've said it before, I'll say it again. And this meeting did not go as well as it could have or should have. There was a date change that was not communicated well enough. Only 3 committee members were able to come. 2 were popping in and out. So when we got to the vote, that's in addition to myself, when we got to the vote, it was down to 1 person. That's of concern. The attachments were not on the agenda. So the members had 0 prior knowledge of any of this information. So they were given the information, they had to digest it all, and then make a recommendation in a very short amount of time. That was not ideal. And it means that I asked them, these devoted members who care deeply, to do exactly what I was trying to avoid by creating this committee, and that was what you guys wanted to avoid as well. When I pulled this from the consent agenda about a year ago, it was because we didn't have enough information to sort of blindly approve $114 million worth of state money, taxpayer money. When I pulled this, it was because we wanted more data. We needed to be able to defend our decisions, and that is what has happened in the last 6 months to a year. And I was privy to that process. I I saw how that coordinated funding request went. I saw the data that came in. We asked more questions, like she says. I pushed. The committee members were not privy to that information. So of course they were like, I can't approve this. I don't have the information. So that is why I recommend approval, but the committee does not. Basically, I have a lot to learn to be a chair, and I ask that you approve this, and I ask that our committee members will give me grace and forgiveness, and as I learn and do better moving forward. The other thing, if you'll go back to the slide on the 3 new providers, because I'm going to push again. Sorry. While she's pulling that up, the 3 new providers you'll notice are level 2 Better Beginnings providers. That's on a 6-star system. These are not high quality rated providers. However,
sorry guys, I'll get there.
Thank you. Yeah, so you'll see on the bottom, they're level 2 out of 6. I want to watch this because this is their opportunity to engage with the state more, to increase their Better Beginnings level. If we come back next year and we look at these levels and they have not increased, or perhaps one of our funded programs decreases, or they're not coming back with quality scores, with great outcomes, with high class scores, all the things that we need to focus on, we will look at that reallocation in a different way. And the other thing that I want to say that I need to reiterate, and Ms. Williams did a fabulous job doing this in a very kind way, but we as a board have been approving ghost children, funding for ghost children. So a program may have initially had, I'm just making up these numbers, this is not about a specific program, but say they had 20 kids enrolled, they requested money for 20 kids, and over the years, they're now only serving 10 kids. But as a board, through a consent agenda, we kept giving them money for 20 kids. That's not gonna happen anymore. That's why we wanted to pull it last year, because we couldn't look at this and say we're doing right by taxpayers, we're doing right by our kids. We are moving in that direction. So, thank you.
Well, I recognize this is not a fawn fest, but Ms. Keener is too self-effacing. You know, I witnessed the meeting, and the attendance wasn't her fault, and the people that spoke up wanted it both ways. Explicitly, they would say, we want our cake and we want to eat it too. In that, we don't want agencies to lose seats, and we don't want waiting lists, and we would like more money. So what's a chair to do with that? So I think she resolved it with such a positive spirit, and respecting those voices, while at the same time anyone that would hear the transcript would have rolled their eyes.
Thank you. I'm glad you're able to be there, Dr. Arnold, and thank you, Lee, for your work, and Ms. Williams. I know there's been a lot of changes in the past 2 years, and it's exciting to see this progress as you all have more information and are better able to serve. I have a few questions. Yeah, you can go first.
Yeah, looking at the program, you know, I really see value in the framework, and I think it could really be impactful. The question I have is somewhat preliminary. I see you got 3 districts that were selected. Is it a lottery process? What was the determining factor to selecting the districts?
Yeah, so we used a lot of data, Mr. Henderson, to do that. So it was using the coordinated funding requests that came in from local leads. It was using what % of the children in a county is being served. And so those new programs, now there are existing programs that also are receiving additional allocation, but they were all in those communities that were 0 to 40%, and they made a request. There are some counties that were 0 to 40 that didn't include a request. And so we have work to do there to help communities think about that. So those were the big factors, and the enrollment of that program.
So it's fair to say that with Lee's leadership, these numbers could be doubled by next year?
The what's that?
Nah, yeah, I do see the value in this, and I appreciate your work with this program, and look forward to the future of it.
Thank you. Well, and that was, I didn't mention this part, but the part of the coordinated funding request, what is so beautiful about it is this process is that we know that data tells a story, and once this data was laid out, the story was already written. It was like, well, obviously, this needs to go to these places. So we can look at this list and each one of us be able to defend these decisions and where this money goes. So we're gonna keep pushing. Thank you, guys. If someone would make a motion, sorry.
A question. The difference in your appropriation and the award amount, are you anticipating the possibility of more funding?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm not.
It's, what's allocated is not enough, bottom line. And if there's an appetite for it right now in the legislature, I'd entertain it. I don't think there is. Yeah, it's a problem.
I believe the answer is the per pupil amount, that hasn't changed in years. Is that right?
It changed, Dr. Moore. I think 2 years ago, there was a little bit of savings and relinquishment, and they pushed it back in right before I, came back into it and raised it to the $5,105 per child. But it was just a little bit.
But this is no change over last year.
No change over last year.
By comparison, we have districts receiving over 20,000 per student per year. So 5,000 is not going to get us where we need to go.
For K-12 students, yeah, compared to.
Right.
Well, Ms. Keener, I sure appreciate all your work on this and putting a new focus on it. And Ms. Williams, I know you've worked for years on this. There's an old saying, we're getting better at getting better. So please don't beat yourself up. That's something, no, we're not going to accept that at all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But I'll make a motion to accept this request for approve the Arkansas Better Chance program.
There's a motion by Ms. Rollins to approve the request. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Mr. Henderson. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you, board members.
Remember a comment now?
I do want to make a comment because, first off, Lee doesn't push. Lee shoves, okay? But she shoves in the most enthusiastic demand of excellence. And she does that same demand of herself. And that's what you saw just a minute ago. I want to recognize Brandy sitting in the room, Brandy and Tanya's team. They work, this is the first time that we went through a process like this to let data really drive the decision-making process. It was new to the entire Office of Early Childhood. And Ms. Keener asked all the right questions to get us to that point.
Some wrong ones too.
And do what? And some wrong, never. So we value your input, we value your leadership. I know the OEC team has grown and they appreciate this. I want to encourage the rest of you not to do this. Just let it be Lee right now, okay? I'm kidding you. No, she's been amazing and she's been a true leader in this field and everybody's growing, okay? And don't beat yourself up. You didn't, all the stuff you said you did, I was like, what is she talking about? Gary, your comments were astute and on point, what you said. I always tell the literacy and the learning services team, if we're talking to a bunch of science teachers, they say we need 4 science credit and everybody should take physics and chemistry. Okay, if you're talking to history teachers, everybody needs government, everybody needs this, and this is how many credits we need. When you have a subcommittee full of early childhood people, they need more money, yes. They need more seats, yes. Right, so when it comes down to the decision of what actually happens, sometimes it doesn't always meet up, right? And that's what you saw there. That wasn't anything on you. Okay, so I appreciate the work of Tanya's team, and I appreciate the work that this board just now recognized of Ms. Keener and of the Office of Early Childhood. So thank y'all.
Thank you. With that, let's go ahead and do a break before our consent agenda, and then we'll do consent agenda and move in straight to reports after that. So it's 10:19. We'll come back at 10:25. like I'm arguing over it. Okay, with that, we will get back together for the consent agenda. Board members, are there any items you'd like to discuss today or pull for a later date from the consent agenda?
I didn't hear what you just said, Dr. Moore.
You're good. We're on the consent agenda. If there are any items that you would like to ask questions of today or pull for a later date. And while I give you time, I do have questions on report number 2. Ms. Saraceni, I'm sorry, I meant to give you a warning, and I did not. If you don't mind. Ms. Newton was always really good at working with you on this report, and y'all have done a great job of giving us more and more data over the years. But I noticed in this report, when we're looking at the licensure exceptions, we have 2 districts with very high percentages of licensure exceptions. Do these licensure exceptions include teachers on Act 1240 waivers?
Carly Saraceni, Assistant Commissioner, Educator Effectiveness and Licensure. Good morning. Chair, that does not include Act 1240.
Okay.
Because Act 1240s are given to a district or a school,
Okay.
not an individual. And so, but we're very excited because that may change soon, and then we will be able to track them.
Okay, I noticed Strong had 68% of their teachers with licensure exception waivers, and Junction City had 47%. I would bet those districts probably don't have a 1240 waiver for licensure then.
That's correct.
Okay, so they, still have, and therefore those teachers are required to be on a pathway.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, and most of them are ALPs, which is adding additional licensure plan. That means a person already has a teaching license, just not in that particular area.
Right. Okay, thank you. Sorry to call you up
No,
cold,
thanks.
but I do appreciate how y'all have given us such better data over the years to get a better picture of what's going on.
And I think it would be also a good time to mention, we talked a little bit about our workshop yesterday about the progress we're following, tracking some bills, but there's some proposed legislation that I believe already made it through House Education Committee and Senate Education yesterday that's going to really look at teacher licensures and it would actually flip the narrative where we're getting away from waiving licensures as a blanket school or a blanket district and put every teacher on their own professional path. So the goal is we want everybody to have a standard license. I think we all stand united and would be hard pressed to argue that license doesn't matter. It matters. The research is very clear. Strong licensed teachers that have mastered their craft have high impact on student gains, but we know teachers come to us from all different paths in lives. So we've done a really good job. I give Ms. Saraceni a lot of credit of working with how can we make the path to a standard license more attainable. And I think historically we probably made things way harder than they needed to be. And if this legislation goes through, what I think I'm most excited about is if you have a candidate that's on an alternative pathway, if they demonstrate success with students, we can give them a license. Like, we used to not do that and then wonder why they didn't stick around and not give them a waiver. So I was like, we're taking a real common sense approach to professional license. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I think that your questions are spot on why I think our agency is really tracking this bill and would welcome it if it makes it through the legislative process, because it's really going to be what's right for teachers in schools to make sure that everybody knows what they need to do. And I know we even heard an item here earlier around pathways for media specialists. You know, we've heard a lot and done some work as an HCA with pathways for special education. There's things that we can do within our purview to make sure that if somebody, and I'll use an example, we have people that have a master's degree in history and they want to teach history and their kids are all passing AP history, but because we didn't make them jump through a bunch of hoops, we're not going to say you're good enough. That needs to go away, and we're going to make sure we fix that.
The flexibility is going to be wonderful, and the options are there. It's just also communicating it out, and also with the Teacher Academy Scholarship, that barrier's gone of cost.
Thank you. Any other questions on that, board members? I'm taking a point of privilege. I'm going to be echoing Mr. Sutton, who we miss on this board too, and asking questions about number 3, the review of loan and bond applications. Dr. Sanders, would that be you? We should have asked Greg Raj. Oh, Anita, thank you. We have a few districts on the list that have debt ratios at 25% or greater. Can you remind me what flags a concern of a debt ratio, and are those conversations y'all are having?
Well, so there used to be a limit in statute of 27%, and that was taken out of statute. However, we do still look at districts that have the higher debt ratios, making sure that their fund balances look good. We have a committee that reviews all of these applications, and someone from Fiscal Services and Support is on that committee and reviews all of the financial information.
Okay, so you all weren't concerned about any of these listed here because that recommendation has been made?
Exactly, yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any other questions on that? Okay. Thank you for being here. With that, I'll go back to any other items or questions from the consent agenda.
I have concerns about item number 11, and that I've addressed just on a minor level with the department, but I would like the opportunity to kind of review the facts of this a little more thoroughly. Specifically, the reason for the concern is that the initial subcommittee that reviewed this case recommended a permanent revocation of the license, and then the second subcommittee reduced that down to just a 1-year suspension. And probation, I'm sorry, you're right. And I would like to review that if.
I guess that, you said item number 11?
Item number 11,
okay.
Regarding Nancy Anderson.
Board members, any other items you want to be pulled? Do you have any questions today, or we will then, if it's pulled, we then have a hearing?
Yeah, in April.
Okay. With that, the floor will be open for a motion on the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 11 and move, is it a separate motion to pull that, or just?
I think your motion
No,
covers
your
that.
motion covers
Right.
it. I
So
think
move
generally.
to approve the consent agenda with the exception of item 11.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Wood. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Ms. Keener. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. With that, we will move on to our report section. To start, we have Ms. Keener. Are you ready, or do we
I think
wanna
I'm
go ahead?
reported. Consider me reported.
Well, thank you again for your leadership and your work in that area. And I know there's still a lot more work to be done, so thank you for your continued work. Nominating committee, it is that time of year. Kathy and I just have a few months left. So with that, we have a nominating committee that will be appointed today. They will meet and make recommendations by the April meeting and vote in May, I believe, if I'm correct, for chair and vice chair for the upcoming year, which starts in July. As reported, we have Randy, Lisa, and Adrian willing to serve on the nominating committee. Is that right? Okay, thank you all for your service. We don't vote on that because it's a report. So that has been reported, and you all will come back with us next month on that. Randy Henderson, Lisa Hunter, and Adrian. Yeah. And with that, board members who are interested on leadership roles, please talk to Mary about any roles that you're interested in, as she will share that with the nominating committee. Thank you. We will move on to one of the best report, teacher, no offense, the head teacher of the year.
Thank you. Good to see you all again. I believe it was Ms. Hunter we were visiting yesterday, talking about how fast things were going, and I believe after today I will only have 3 more reports. So it's been a busy year, a good busy, but it's moving along very quickly. Started off a few weeks ago I don't know if it's switching or not. There it goes. We had our state chapter. Arkansas is our state chapter of the National School Public Relations Association. We had our state conference at Oaklawn, and what's really cool about this is, you know, a lot of your bigger districts, you have your communications departments and your communications director, and you know, there's a bigger need for it. But at your smaller districts, a lot of times that's your library media specialist. Sometimes your superintendents take on those roles. But the state conference is when we all get together, and some of your bigger departments are able to pass on good practices to your smaller school districts. Just a really good opportunity, because a lot of times there's really nobody within your district to lean on for advice when you're in those roles. It's the other individuals in other districts who have those same roles. And when you think of communications directors, it's a lot more than the PR and the marketing part of it. At their schools, they're responsible for delivering, you know, systems that deliver the most important information in a reliable form to parents and the communities as well. But really neat state conference. Our state chapter does a great job. Really proud of them. A few days later, this was a rare occasion. Capri and I, we got to co-teach. It's not often that the Teachers of the Year get to run a room together. A lot of times we don't see each other, but this was very special at Fountain Lake. They had a career day. Capri and I got to meet up and tell them all about the teaching careers, especially about the different pathways and the awesome things that we love about teaching. And made a visit up to Cabot. That is Melanie Blanchett on the left. If you remember back in the fall, Melanie was one of our 4 finalists and for 2025 Teacher of the Year. On our school visit, when the panel went and visited the classrooms, she had her theater students. They were in the middle of gearing up for a production. They were also talking about their spring production. Just happened to go visit Dr. Greenwood, the CTE department there at Cabot, and didn't even realize it, but they were putting on one of their performances that day. If you know anything about Cabot Theater, it's a lot more than just Cabot Theater. It is the community of Cabot Theater. Not only was it her students that I saw in the classroom that day, these students were from 4th all the way through 12th grade, were performing that day. And they also do it in correlation with a big fundraiser called Walk for Wheezy. And that is a fundraiser that brings awareness to cardiac awareness inside the school systems. They had a theater student pass away several years due to a cardiac situation. And I believe Ms. Blanchett told me that through that program they've raised over $50,000 through the theater's fundraising efforts. But really neat deal there at Cabot. A few days later I went up I-40, visited a former coworker of mine, Drew Brent. He is a broadcast production teacher there at Russellville High School. This is a very new program. I believe they are currently in their 3rd, maybe 4th year. But it was really special that day. Drew's story is kind of like a lot like my story. He had a career before teaching in that industry, and he runs his program like a professional industry. And that day, I got to share my stories, and we shared stories with the students about what we had learned from the past and in that industry. But the coolest part of the day was when he put them through an exercise he calls a flash show. He gave them 45 minutes to write a show, stack a show, and gave them certain stipulations that they had to include in the show. It's much like a live breaking event or live news breaking event. And then he just backed off. And to watch those students take control of the environment and the situation and their interactions between each other and pulled off a show that was flawless 45 minutes later. Really neat to watch. And then a few days later, I got to visit Hope and her team. This was the Office of Public School Accountability, this setting standards for school letter grades in the future, correct? And I believe Hope told me that out of 600 possible applications, 430 educators from around the state, different regions, were there currently working on the school letter grades that we will be moving to in the future. Really neat process to watch and learn. I'll say there a short time. I think it was 3 full days they put in there. It was really neat to watch. And then finally, Module 2 of the PLS program that I'm involved in was in Dallas, Texas. Really just a special opportunity. Not only did we get to visit with Mrs. Bush and President Bush, we also got to learn from Ken Hirsch, Kevin Sullivan, Communications Director for President Bush, and Dana Perino as well. And they led sessions on what they learned through leadership and communication and decision-making while in the administration. And we got to cap it off with an off-the-record visit with President Bush, which was really, really special, and dinner that evening. But those are special. I mean, those are, you know, those are really neat and special items to take from the program. But I think the biggest value is the network that we're able to build with other members of our cohort. For example, I've mentioned that I was going to be starting a work-based learning program whenever I return, or on the other side of this ATOY adventure. I'm able to meet the CEO of the Permian Foundation, which is a foundation built up of 16 energy companies within the Permian Basin. She's the CEO of that, and that foundation has created strategic plans not only to address education in the rural Permian Basin, but also community plans. And part of that was the fact that they've already created an internship program, much like we're wanting to do in Sevier County. So being able to, you know, make those connections, build that network, and it's a network that I'm able to lean in on in the future, is what's really special. And Module 3 is coming up here in a few weeks. It'll be right here in Little Rock. President Clinton and I believe Secretary Clinton and members of their administration will be there too to put it on. Really, really a neat opportunity.
That's amazing, and amazing that you have a seat at the table to shape what they're doing as well. And that's it. Board members, any questions, concerns, and I should have opened up the floor during board reports if any board member had an update they wanted to share as well. Mr. Henderson.
I do have one. Last week, had the opportunity to attend a Northeast Arkansas CTE showcase at Rivercrest. You know, I left there just filled with amazement. I mean, see the students interact with CTE innovation, and they were also presenting to the audience. You know, obviously in that part of the country is big industry, and they were working things like tape measures and teaching other students and teaching a few adults as well. It was a very, very good event. Big kudos to CTE coordinator David D'Agostino and Assistant Superintendent Chantel Raper. They did an amazing job getting everybody together. It was a very big crowd, and you know, I highly recommend if you haven't visited that school, if you're in that part of the state, I promise you won't leave there disappointed. The ADE department was there, Jennifer Snyder, they were leading the charge. Very good event. They have a new greenhouse, just showing some innovative ways some things that they're doing here in the state. So they're very excited.
That's great. I'm glad you're able to go. Board members, any other updates or comments? Dr. Arnold?
Will there be an opportunity for us to hear an update from Hope and her work on the assessment project?
Yes, there will be.
Good, because I too took a peek, and it was really exciting to see how deep they dove down into the data to change the system.
That's great. Secretary, pass it to you.
Sure. So first, want to thank the board for another wonderful meeting, and for those of you that were able to join yesterday to be at the, I guess it was deemed demo day at the School of the Deaf and Blind. What a wonderful event, and what a journey we've been on for a year and a half to help elevate and set the high expectations for the students there to deserve the high quality facilities that are safe and accommodating for some of our most vulnerable students. So we're really excited because We got that commitment from Governor Sanders and the legislature that we can reimagine that footprint. And it seemed like it was so long ago, and people were starting to question, like, is it really gonna happen? Are you really gonna do something? But there's so much planning that has to take place, and dirt that has to get moved around, and plans that gotta get approved, and permits. But when we get to the point where buildings are starting to get moved around, I think we're gonna see a lot of progress happening very quickly. So that was it was a wonderful event, and we're really excited about that. Some questions around updates on where we are with the standard setting process, and how we're kind of moving to, I kind of call it almost the last phase of this redesign journey that we've been on for about 2.5 years. That started with this board by approving some updated standards around ELA and math, and we've reimagined our professional learning, built out instructional materials for that, and then wrote a whole new assessment that included a lot of new test items to measure whether or not students are learning what we expect them to learn. And the board was very engaged with that standard setting process, where we had to develop and kind of say what the cut scores are going to be. Like, this is what level 1 means, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5. So that's the data that gets put into our accountability system. So I think when we started this project, even with the standards all the way through to the school accountability redesign and cut scores, we put out a call to experts and wanted to make sure that this is a product representative of people that are true practitioners that are in Arkansas classrooms. And we've gotten some guidance and oversight from some national experts, but this is the product of the standards all the way through assessment of the people that are making a difference in the lives of our children each and every single day. And I want to say, and Hope, correct me if I'm wrong, but from start to finish, we've involved about 3,500 different Arkansas educators throughout this process. So talk about being transparent and reflective and making sure that everybody had a seat at the table. I commend the team for going above and beyond to make that happen. So the work group that Bo participated in, I did question how Bo got a seat at the table. I was like,
I got rushed out. I got rushed out by noon. It was just an observation day.
Observation. I was like, wow, Bo, you're a statistician. Cool. I'm picking on him. But no, we had a great representation of folks. So our intention is that at the April board meeting, we'd like to schedule a workshop the day before to go through that process and what that means. In the afternoon, similar like we did the workshop yesterday, and then maybe presenting some options to the board for consideration at the April board meeting. So this is kind of like the culmination of a journey that we've been on for over 2 years, and I feel like we're finally going to be able to land that plane. And when we do, it's really going to set our expectations where they need to be, and everything is going to be clear. It's going to be concise. It's going to be consistent. We're going to get rid of all the confusion, and we're going to have confidence that when we issue school grades, they mean what they say, and we'll know how to garner our support. So I appreciate you all being a part of that journey, and I know we're pretty excited to get there. I think another kind of big thing that we want to celebrate as well, and I see Dr. Smith and his team, is we opened up our Educational Freedom Accounts portals March 1st, which is a big undertaking, because that's another big priority, is that we've said as a state with Arkansas Learns that we're going to empower parents, and we know that one size fits all doesn't work, and we need to create some options. So there was about a 3-year runway, or leading up to almost 3-year runway to phase in how we can create more opportunities for families and students so that they can be in a learning environment that works best for them. So that platform opened up March 1st, and of course, probably within 45 minutes of it opening, our website got overwhelmed and went down for a little bit, and we had to revive it and bring it back up. But the team, I think, has done a wonderful job navigating through that. And I want to say to date, we have about 30,000 students registered since March 1st, saying that this is the best path for them. So a lot to celebrate there, and it's a big win for Arkansas and leading the nation in school choice. So want to recognize those folks.
Do we have a total of what's going to be available this next year yet?
Well, we have a number that has been built into the governor's budget. So I want to say that number is close to 40 Like, it's a hard exact science to navigate, but we're still under that ceiling. We're hoping that we're going to be able to accommodate all the families.
40,000 students.
Total. Yeah. And then I think another big priority that we've been working on, and we've been able to give some updates, and we spent some time yesterday talking about how we're going to build on the great work of Arkansas Learns and expand that to Arkansas Access. So we've been working with our community and our legislative folks and college presidents and superintendents to put together what I think is a wonderful piece of legislation that's really going to set high expectations for all students and make sure that there's no barriers or obstacles that get in their way of helping them reach their highest potential. So we've been very fortunate that our bill has gone through committee. I think it was actually earlier this week. I'm getting all my days crossed, but and then it went through the Senate floor yesterday, and I think it's up on the House floor for consideration today. So there's a lot of wonderful things that are happening in the state around education and just kind of building out that system of alignment. And we would not be able to do it if it wasn't for this board and your support and the educators out in the field for providing their input and giving us a chance to solicit their feedback. So really proud. This is probably, if I put my former high school principal hat on, springtime is my favorite time of the year because that's when you're getting into all the end of the year banquets and proms and graduations, and there's a lot of excitement happening in our schools, and you're planning and already starting to build master schedules for next year. So just want to thank our schools for what they've done to lead up to where we are this spring, for having a wonderful school year for our students, and just remind them that we always like to say, don't count down the days, make every day count.
Absolutely. Thank you, Secretary, for providing those updates. Questions or comments, board members? With that, do we have anyone here for public comment? Check, sorry, I should have checked before. We'll check on that. I don't see anyone in here. Raise your hand. We'll check in the lobby just to be sure. Yeah, I want to echo, it was exciting to be at the Blind and Deaf School yesterday and appreciate the leadership there and the leadership from the department and their support. With that, I believe, well, let's double check real quick. That'll be the end of our meeting. And we'll check. And it sounds like we all need to save next Wednesday around our board meeting for a work session. We'll be in touch. Okay, we good?
It's the 9th.
We good?
Yeah, April 9th.
Is the work session.
Yeah, April 9th.
Okay. Thank you all.